Hi, boys and girls. I'm Pastor Charles, and welcome to another weekly Bible story. How are you different than everybody else? We all have ways that we're different, right? And there's some ways in which nobody else is quite like us. I mean, think about your friends. If you have like red hair, not many of your friends have red hair, do they? Or perhaps you have this one toe that's way longer than like all of your other friends' toes. Or maybe you were born in a different state, or maybe even a different country. That makes you way different than the other people that you know, right? But even if you aren't different in big ways, you can still be different in small ways. Look at the person who's closest to you. Maybe it's your sibling or your mom or your dad. How are you different from just that one person? Well, maybe you guys have different hair color or even different hair texture. Maybe one of you, your eyes are curly, and the other one, your hair is straight. Did I say eyes? One of you, your hair is curly, and the other one of you, your hair is straight. Or maybe your eyes have a different color than they do, right? Maybe you, let's see here, maybe you guys are different ages. Maybe you are different heights. There's so many different ways that you can be different from somebody else. Are those differences a good thing or a bad thing? I personally think they're a good thing. I think that God made you different on purpose. He wants you to be different because He likes it when He has all kinds of people that are worshiping Him. We talked about that a long time ago. Do you remember that? Now, should people who love Jesus be different than people who don't love Jesus? Well, Jesus thought so. Today we're talking about the Sermon on the Mount. It was this message that Jesus gave to His followers when He went up on either a big hill or kind of a mountain, and they went up together and He stood there and He told them how He wanted them to be different than everybody else. He told them that there was some good deeds they could do and some ways that were different than the rest of the world lived. He told them that He wanted them to not be angry or hateful. He wanted them to forgive others and to love those who did mean things to them. He wanted them to not judge. He wanted them to give whatever they had to those who didn't have things. He wanted them to pray to God as if they had a close relationship. There were all these ways that Jesus wanted His followers to be different. But He gave some very important reasons for why He wanted them to be different. So let's talk today about what Jesus called His followers. And when He called His followers these things, it was to give a picture of why they were supposed to be different than everybody else in the world. The first thing that He called His followers was the salt of the earth. Have you ever, you know what salt is, right? Salt's that thing that you put on your potato chips or your French fries. Salt's that white structure, or that white grain or something. I don't know quite what salt is. A mineral? But salt, it makes your food taste better, but also it makes you really thirsty, right? Well, in Jesus' day, they didn't have refrigerators or freezers. Whenever you have food that you want to keep for a long time, you put it in either the refrigerator or the freezer, right? Not in Jesus' day. In Jesus' day, they didn't have refrigerators and freezers, so instead, they would cover food in salt to keep it around for a long time. And Jesus told His followers, I want you to be the salt of the earth. I want you to be different. I want you to do all these good things, but I want you to do them so that the rest of the world can be preserved by you. By you doing good things, you help the rest of the world to see me and to understand the grace that I give, the love that I give, and how they can have eternal life. Something important I should mention is that Jesus isn't saying that we should do good deeds because God will love us more if we do good deeds, or that we should do good deeds because we'll be better than everybody else. Instead, He was saying that we should do good deeds so that other people can love Jesus and be close to Jesus as well. He doesn't stop by just calling us the salt of the earth. Do you know what he calls us next? He calls us the light of the world. Here, this is a light bulb, kind of. There we go, got some light shining there. That's a light bulb. Don't worry about the bottom, I know that's rough. When Jesus calls us the light of the world, he's saying a similar thing. He's saying that the world is full of darkness. There's so many people who are lost and don't know what way to go. When it's dark in your house, do you get a little bit scared? I mean, can I be honest? When it's dark and I can't see anything, I get a little bit scared too. I'm not scared of like monsters or anything like that, but I'm afraid I'm going to bump my toe on something and that hurts. And so I have to walk around very carefully whenever it's dark. I would much rather have light, like a flashlight, that I can point around and see where I'm going. When Jesus calls us the light of the world, he's saying, I want you to be different. Because if you're different, if you're doing these good things that other people aren't doing, people will see the light. They will see who I am, who God is in the midst of all this darkness. And it will bring them closer to me, Jesus. So we're called the salt of the earth. We're called the light of the world. And by being different, we can bring people closer to God. But then he called not just us, but all people. One more thing. He called us trees. Now this, the salt and the light, he talks about in the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. But the trees, that comes much later in the sermon. When he calls us trees, he talks about you know what kind of tree you have based on the fruit that it produces. What kind of fruit do you like to eat? Do you like to eat apples? Well, what kind of plant do apples grow on? They grow on an apple tree. Do you like to eat bananas? Well, what do bananas grow on? A banana tree, right? Pears, pear tree. Oranges, orange tree. Watermelons? Watermelons don't grow on trees. I tricked you. If you caught on, good for you. Watermelons grow on the ground, but they're still fruit. But in general, you know what kind of tree something is by what kind of fruits are on it. And even more so, you know if a tree is good for making fruit if the fruit on it is healthy and good to eat. What if I took an apple straight off the tree and it was all brown and gross and maybe had some bugs in there? Ugh. Well, more than likely, the tree itself is bad. Jesus said, I want my followers to be different. And by looking at the way that my followers live their lives, we will tell whether they are good trees or bad trees. We'll be able to tell whether they're true followers of me or if they're just faking it. Have you ever thought about that before? That by the way you live your life, if you are nice to others and kind and obey your parents and all that sort of stuff, it shows whether or not you actually believe that Jesus was who he said he was. You see, if we believe that Jesus was who he said he was, then we will live our lives differently. We will try to be different than everybody else. And again, living our lives differently and doing the right thing, that doesn't make God love us anymore. It doesn't make us better than everybody else. But we're supposed to do it solely because we want to show other people that Jesus has changed our lives. We talked about that last week, remember? We talked about that Jesus changes our lives. If that's true, then shouldn't you be different? Thanks a lot. Have a great week.